Welcome to another Plan 6 part video. Today's video, piston rings. Yes, we're going to change some piston rings. Okay, so before we change the rings, there's a few things you need to know about this. First of all, why are you changing the piston rings? You're changing the piston rings because obviously you've taken the pistons out. Maybe your car's running oil, dirty or filthy, and it's time to change the rings. Before you go to change the rings, there's a few things I suggest, and it's only suggesting what you do first. Now, when you take the pistons out, get them a clean. The first thing I do before I start stripping any of it is I want to check the head or the crown, whatever you really want to call it. This is a more modern one, and the reason why it's more modern is because it's stamped STD for standard. It has front, has your part number on it. If it was oversized, it'd be stamped the oversized size of what it is, whether it's 1, 2, all the way to 6. But if you have an original one, I'll show you what an original looks like. An original one looks like this. This is an original head. This came out. It's in good condition. There's pretty much no pitting. Even though I haven't fully cleaned it, I scrubbed it off with a bit of wire wool. That's what I like to use. Because I want to check this first before I start digging into everything else to see if I'm wasting my time. How do you know which piston is which? So when you take them out, this is something extra. Is that, as you can see, the original ones have a stamp on it. It will have A or B. And it has an arrow. Well, it should have an arrow, but by the time you take it out, it could be a square or something like that. Who knows? The letter on it depends what size it was bored at. So there's basically two different sizes when it was done standard size. It was dependent if it was a little too big or a little too small, and that's the difference between an A and a B. I have another video done, and if you have a look at it, it checks out that if you're not sure what it is, it's actually stamped on the side of your of the block itself, the actual block. It is actually stamped in there. Now, depending on how long you have it, how long it's been repainted or whatever, it could be worn down by then. But check out my other video if you want to see what they are on it. If you take these out and you still have the markings on them, great. Remember where they are. Don't disconnect them. So in the event that you want to actually measure your cylinder, your top, middle, and bottom to make sure we're in range, you know what size you're going from because there is two different sizes if it's an original, an A and a B. That's what you need to know. If, like me, you've taken out and realized somebody's already replaced the pistons, well, how do you know? And again, that goes back to checking the side of the block and looking for them stamps that are on the side of it at number 1 and 6. Again, like check out the other video and you'll see. Okay, so we've gone to the point that we've taken off. And this is a good, for an original piston, this is good. It's good, it's smooth. If I clean this up, there's next to no pitting. So there obviously was low mileage on it, or at some point it was changed with original ones before they moved to these more modern style ones. But if I took this off and this was all pitted and it basically looked like the lunar surface, and the rings were absolutely caked in there, would I bother changing the rings? No. Change the damn head. And the reason why is that, like, this thing has probably been in it 50 years. Why on earth would you take something out that's so pitted and badly that the reason why it's probably running bad is because of all the pits, especially at the edge, at the brim here. Why would you put that back in? So before you start pulling rings off and changing just rings, make sure that the head itself is actually good. What you also want to do is flip it around. So when you take it out and look underneath to your connecting rod, you want to check along here. Here's where you'll find a lot of cracks and damage. And you'll know, because sometimes it'll look pretty obvious if somebody's already had the piston out and cleaned it and put the one straight back in again. Because you'll see like chisel marks or spanner marks or something, like a screwdriver or something where you've banged it to try push it out of the block to get it to pop out. You'll find stress fractures here. Again, if it's cracked or has a stress fracture or a fissure, chuck it. Don't bother with it. It is not worth it in the end. You've gone that far to strip it out, don't bother doing it. That's my opinion. It's totally up to you. Also, when I take one out, if I find one with damage, they all go. I don't chop and change. I don't replace 1 or 2 new heads and put original back in. It's either one or all. It's as simple as that with me. Now, the reason why I'm changing rings is that Doug's engine here I took apart, and he has pretty new pistons. These are pretty new. I'm not going to gain anything by putting brand new ones in there again, because these are pretty much new. Like, even that original one was pretty good if they all look like that. But this is good. There's no reason to do that. However, his engine was running dirty. It was filthy. It was absolutely filthy. There was a lot of oil everywhere. So it's a possibility maybe somebody put the rings in wrong, or this, that, and the other. So in this case, I'm just going to change the rings. The rings are pretty loose and so on, but maybe they were put in wrong. Maybe you weren't lined up correctly. When I say lined up, meant to be staggered. Could be any reason. But for the sake of eliminating the process, I'm going to change the rings. So let's actually go change some rings. What tool will we need? We'll need one of these. If you have one of these, they're pretty cheap. You can pick them up, Princess Auto, Canadian Tire, whatever. There's a lot of ring tools you can get. Amazon. It's just a springed pliers. It's nothing special. So again, so you've checked your piston. You've made sure that the piston is worth putting back in. The crown is good. The brim is good. There's no stress fractures anywhere. No chunks over it. You know it's good to put back in. Let's go change our rings. Again, this is not about sizing to make sure this is the right piston or anything like that. This is just simply changing the rings. However, obviously, before you do that, you want to make sure things first. Since you're changing the rings, you're not worried about how you come out. Honestly, you don't care because, well, you're changing them. So you want to start from the top. Well, it's your choice. It's easy to start from the top. If you're taking them out and you're not sure what's where, it says if for some reason this is brand new and you are keeping the rings and putting them back in, make sure you put them in the correct order, where they were and so on, and keep them to the same piston. However, like I said, if you're changing rings, I certainly wouldn't be putting rings back on that I just took off, because I'm taking them off for a reason. I said, I'm lucky that these are pretty loose enough to get off. Sometimes you stick in and you will break off and you'll have to basically chip away them to get them out. Remember, if you have to get to a point where you have to chip the rings off the head, why? Why is it so seized in there? Inspect everything before you get that far, because you might not be worth your time. Losing all that time to get the rings out to clean it, only to realise that they're pitted and cracked up. So, do what needs to be done first. Now, the bottom one, the oil seal. This one is, I'd like to say this tool would work on it, but to be honest, getting it off, no, it doesn't work. It's pretty useless. You can use a screwdriver, a pointer. You can use one of these if they're thin enough, if you have enough room, although sometimes it works. Most of the time it doesn't. This is only handy if it gets a little stuck and you can spread it a bit more. But to get them out, you really just need like a pointer or a flathead. So, how these work is the oil ring in the middle has two rings to hold it in position. There's the two rings on the bottom. There's no directional, no nothing. They just basically sit on top of it and just keep it in position. So you have to get rid of these two first in order to take the center one out. Because otherwise you realise you're going to waste a lot of time and scratching trying to do that. So all I do is, me personally, I'll keep a bit of pressure on the back, like with fingers. So when I go to separate it, it bends enough just to lift up, just to lift out of the groove. Right, now I have it out of the groove. Hopefully you can see this. Right, it's sticking out. What I'll do is, to make sure it comes out, I'm not just going to pull it, because I'm going to scratch all the outside, but I'm going to push it. I want to push it to try open it up more, and as I push it, I go up, and when I get to the top, I do the same. I keep pushing, and it will twist and bend all the way around. I don't care, it's coming out, but I just try not to scratch the edge. So you see, I've gotten it up, and I'm going to push. As I push, it comes out, and out it comes. Alright, I don't care about it. I don't care if it bends or twists or anything. I'm going to do the exact same for the bottom one. You don't have to do top or bottom first or bottom. That's a little irrelevant as long as you get done. You can do the same with the bottom one to go to the bottom end, but I always find it easy to go to the top. Again, it's a preference. But if you're not comfortable doing this, you can always get a machine shop to do it. If you have a spare head, if you're changing it, like if you were doing this and you have a spare piston and you take the rings out, well, you can always practice putting old rings on an old head, just to practice it before you go digging into a brand new set, just in the case. I mean, so there's always something you can do. There's a little slip here. Oh, come on now. Easier said than done, huh? Usually this is the easy part of it. Getting them in is the hard part. Alright, let me try good. Oh, finally, got the center lip. This wasn't happening. frustrations. Now again, I want to make sure it doesn't go down, so I'm going to push. Sorry, I was off camera. Push, lift up, and just wring it out. The last one, the O-ring itself, will pop out pretty easy. It's pretty flimsy. So now we have our piston free. Obviously, again, you've already inspected. You know you're putting it back in. Now you want to clean it. You want to make sure you clean it between the channels and so on and so forth and get any grime. And remember as well, actually, you forgot to mention, is that it is loose. If for some reason it's stuck, well then take it out. Pop it out, have a look at it, make sure which direction it goes in. It just might need a little bit of oil. Maybe the I can't think of the name now. The bearing in there is gone because there is a little sleeve that actually goes in there. Maybe that's gone. Maybe it's just full of oil or crap, and it's a good way of cleaning it out. So remember, inspect everything before you put on, and the oil should be like that. So if you get to this point, you can always take all the rings off first, check them all. Like I said, if any of them are terrible, one is bad, you go. So that's where I am. It's one or none. So now, what do I use to clean it? To me, I use these. Get the Dremel. I use these little brush heads. They're from metal. Get them on Amazon, eBay, that sort of malarkey. There's different grades. There's a hard, there's a light. I always do light just to start off with, just to be sure, because you don't need to go hard. And just give it a clean. What else I use is a brush. You get them in like Princess Auto. This is a plastic. It's not metal. And I'll use that to just basically dig into the grooves and get the crap out. After that, I just simply spray it down. So, do you want me to watch me clean this? No. So let me look at one I just done. Oh, look, here it is. So this one I just done. So every time I take one apart, I clean it and I do that process all the way through. Now you see, these are more modern. There's more channels in it. It's a little easier to clean. Like I said, I'm lucky. This is pretty newish enough, so like it was pretty easy to clean. Now putting the rings back on. So here's the information you need to know if you do decide to do this process. One is, make sure you actually have the correct rings for the correct head. So make sure when you do it, you actually stay with it a standard or oversized. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, this number here, Tr6 should be the same, and here should be, whether it's, that'd be like 5, 10 or whatever, all the way up to 6. If it's oversized, all 0 should be standard. Again, it depends who you get your supplier from, or where they come from, the manufacturer. Just make sure, they usually all should have the same part number, unless it's Moss, because you know the way they like to make part numbers to charge more. Sorry, did I say that out loud? Okay, so your rings come, you have 1, 2, and then you have 3 pieces for number 3. So don't get them mixed up. Keep them the same. Read the instructions. It does tell you that when you're putting the oil seal on, it's the most important seal of all is the oil, because it's the hardest. I'm lucky because I like this one. The ones I get do come with a red and green tab. So I'll know if it's not correct because it won't sit like this. Hopefully I'll be able to focus in on it. It won't sit like that. It has to see the little tab, as you can see, and that's how I know if it's wrong. And that's where I was getting at, that, and the possibility that the rings that were put on this, maybe somebody put them on and didn't put it on correctly, and the oil seal was leaking and so on. It can happen. It can happen. So this is good, these little tabs. I also noticed on these, and I don't know about anybody else, that I find that the little tab at the side that holds these on, I find one longer than the other. I find with the red on the left and the green on the right, when I put the very bottom one on, I find that loosens, and the top one is more like that, it holds it in. Now, maybe that's just these, maybe that's just how these ones come. Yours might be the same, but I've noticed that's the best way for me to do it. Now, here's a few important things to know. And again, it's always read the manufacturer's instructions or guidelines. That's the best way to do it. I've used these, so this is just a little extra. So don't say this has to be the way. I'm not trying to say that. The spacing of them. So each gap, if we're going to call them a gap, where they join together, the joint or the gap, has to be separated. You have to have pretty much 1 to 2 inches thereabouts, or at least an inch gap difference. Now, with these more modern pistons, the good thing about it is though, they have extra breed holes here. So I use them as a reference. So my first gap is right over here. It's right here. The next one I'll put on the bottom ring. It doesn't make a difference which side, but usually I'll put it on when I put on the bottom, I'll put it on this side. And I go beyond here. So now I know it's more than an inch from here to here. That's fine. And I'll do the same with the opposite side. The top one will go here. Hopefully I'm in camera view for this. So, sorry. So when I look down on it, I see one is here. The next bottom ring is probably at about 4 o'clock. And then the other one is at probably about 8 o'clock. The next 2 rings I'll put on at like 1 o'clock, 1 to 2. and you're doing again about 11ish. So I have all 4 corners and I spaced out as much as I can, and I just repeat the process. So to me, that's the way it is. It doesn't make a difference which side of the actual piston you're on. As long as they're spaced out, that's fine. As long as you don't overlap, that's fine. But if you keep them all the same, great. So whatever way you're going to put them in, because you should be able to twist them. If you fold them all the same, great. The great way to do it is to follow the same pattern. Okay, so we put the oil seal on. Next one's the bottom ones. The bottom ones don't have a side. You can go on any way at all. But they are a little flimsy. So just be mindful of this. That's what I said. If you've never done this before, you can always take your old rings and practice putting them back on a head, just till you get used to it. Like I said, it's a comfort level, but like anything, practice. And you don't be practicing with brand new parts in the event you do get it wrong. You don't want to twist it or break it. I mean, that's the thing. Now, because these are a little flimsy, I always, when I open them up, I try to keep them as flat as I can. So I always put 2 fingers and try to spread them. So if this was at, let's say, 12 o'clock to you, I'll hold at pretty much 3 and 9 to keep as open as I can. Now, usually 7 out of 10 times, or in the case of 60% of the time, most of the time, when I put the rings on, you always end up in the wrong slot. This one went in first time. It's magic. I always get stuck on this ring. I let it go too early and get stuck in here on me. Always. So that worked out. Anyway, that was a bit of luck. Okay, so again, I'm going back to my tabs. Hopefully you can see these. So now I have them in. Hopefully it's focused in. I have the green, I have the red, and I have to make sure that these 2 tabs in the middle butt up. If they don't, one will be sitting on top of the other. I know it's wrong. You know when it's in good because it should move freely. And that's what I was saying. When I put the next one on, I find that it sort of locks it in position. So now I'm going to move the bottom ring to a position I want it in. So tabs line up. This one, as you can see, is just off. I can probably go a little closer. Okay, so here we are here so far. Sorry if I've done that out of focus. I was trying to hold it. So I keep it over in the middle. There's one gap. That's the next one, as you can see, is right here. So the next ring I'm going to put on up here. And I'm sorry if it keeps being blurry. I'm trying to focus it. Every time I move, it obviously picks a point to focus in on. So here, there it is there. And I'm going to put the next one on top, and I'm going to put it here. This is the hardest ring to put on. Once you obviously, well, the first ring is always theoretically the hardest because it's getting it down all the way. But I do find that with these ones, personally, putting the red on the left and the green on the right, the bottom one slides a lot and the top one more like locks in. Again, maybe yours is not like that. Check them when you do it. When you check them, actually have a look at the tabs and see if one tab is a little longer than the other. Because then if that's the case, then I'd put the longer one to the bottom, just to allow you to line it up first and then lock it in with the next one. Just to be sure. Every ring probably makes them a little different, but because I can't say for sure if it is or it isn't. I don't make them. So now I'm going to move it to where I know it's going to be pretty much where I want it. As you can see, when you open up, it just wants to curl up and wobble because there's resistance. So maybe there's a better tool than these. I don't know. Oh, there you go. See, this one went in the middle one. So, if it goes in there, it's like taking it off the first time. Just push it out enough to get it to sit down. And again, you can move it a bit, but again, just push this back to allow a bit of freedom for it to come back again. So, I'll keep one finger on it, and hopefully you can see this, and just push it back enough that I can... Of course, I can one down the other side, pops back up. So again, like I said, I'll pick one in, I'll hold it and I'll push it as much as I can, and at the same time I'll try flick it down to get it so I'm not scratching it against the edge. I'm not pulling it, because then I'm going to warp it. Like I said, if we get it in one go, it's great. Usually I get the second one in one go. Now, here I want to show you. So, putting the second one in, as you can see, the tabs have gone off. Hopefully you can see this. I still see the green and the red, but the middle ones are not buttoned up. One's sitting in the air, so I know it's a little wrong. So now I have to get this to push this way. The only way really to do that is to loosen this one. So I have to push this to lift it up a bit to get it to go backwards. Otherwise, it's not going to go. It's just going to want to spin in the circle. So you have to, this tab here, the top ring, I just have to loosen it enough. Now, because it's more like a locking ring, it shouldn't be too bad to get it. And again, this is all practice. When I say practice, it's there's no set way of how to actually get this to go back. It's every ring is different. No, still haven't gone in. Sorry. Now that's done, now I have to look at it, and hopefully you can see this. But now you can see the way the tab is actually flush into the middle. Now I know they're buttoned up against each other. That's the important thing. So now I want to make sure the rings, because this ring is obviously moved. So this one, like I said, is pretty easy. You can literally spin this one around without doing anything. This one will pretty much move on its own. The top one is not as easy. What you'll find you'll have to do, is I want to bring back, is you'll have to push it and then push out the rear end with your finger, and it pushes it around, if that makes any sense at all. So hopefully I can show you me doing this. So if I do it, it wants to lift up. And if I push it back in by holding it, it comes back around. And it's a little easy to do it. It's hard to do it and try to show you in the camera. I'll just push it and then push it back in, and it goes. Hopefully that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so how do we look? We have red, green. I know they're buttoned up right here, which is pretty good. Our bottom ring is just past here, because I don't like it over this here. So that's one here. The next one is over here. So now I know I'm beyond, now I know I'm at least an inch away. So now I know I am pretty much here, here, and then the next two I'll put in one here and one here. So the top two are pretty easy. Now, next one. The top two rings are actually shaped. Because they're grooved a certain way. There is an actual groove in them to go a certain way. And I'm hoping you can see. I'm hoping if I zoom in, you can see it. No, it doesn't. It's too skinny to zoom in on. Maybe if I hold my hand here, it might. So see the way it says top? Hope you can read that. It says top. So these are actually marked, which is the top, which is the bottom. Some of them have a little dent or a little imprint. Again, read use your instructions to see which way it is, which is the top, which is the bottom. I'm sure every company makes theirs their own little way, but the ones I always use now are all marked top or bottom. So again, it makes life a little easier when you know which is top, which is bottom. So now I have these on. Next one in is number 2, ring 2. There it goes. And again, like I said, I'm going to aim it pretty much around here, because there's the next one here. It's going to be over this. I'm not too worried about this anymore, because this one is actually blocking it. So it'd just be off of here. And the next one will be just off it on the far side. So I'll be aiming here. So now I have all 4 corners. Again, once you put them on, you can move them when they're on it. You don't have to line up perfect when you first put them on. As long as you line them up before you put them into the sleeve and actually install the piston rings. So when I go to install these, I'll do another video on actually putting these in. But that's it. That's all the rings are in. Make sure they're ready to go to move. Like I said, the bottom one is pretty much a lock-in ring, so I find that's something. These two are loose, and again, they should be out. They should be compressed in. As long as you have the right ring, that's fine. I know there is a way of measuring to make sure when you squeeze in that they're the right ring, but again, if you have a standard new head, you'll get the new rings to match. Otherwise, you have to start measuring your piston and everything to make sure it's the right one, but they should be stamped anyway. So that's it. So hopefully this is helpful in installing any rings if you need to do it. Again, I'll say it a million times. If you find any damage, cracks, fissures, like obviously if there's a ton of pitting up here, any pitting at the edge, just replace the part. Make life so much easier, just replace it. Like I said, I'm lucky enough now that the ones I use, personally, I get, come with the rings already on it, which is great, because you can see this is not exactly an easy process. It's time consuming, it's frustrating a bit at times. But I've done enough rings to be able to put them on, and to be honest, I hate doing it. I'd rather replace the head. But again, for me, I only replace what needs to be done. So hopefully this was helpful. If I missed anything, by all means, throw me up any messages, any concerns, comments, questions around that, and hopefully I can help you with them. And yeah, thanks for watching.